The money already moved. The deal is signed. And in 3 days, the whole industry finds out if the last man standing walks free or stays buried. Let me tell you something that most people are completely sleeping on right now. Right now, today, April 6th, 2026, there are 3 separate situations happening simultaneously in the hip-hop world, and not one single person is connecting the dots between all 3 of them. And I'm not talking about rumors. I'm not talking about social media gossip. I'm talking about cold, hard, documented, on-the-record facts that are about to reshape this entire industry. Situation number 1. 50 Cent just walked away with $75 million. $75 million. From Hulu. For a documentary about T.I. and Tiny Harris. And the people who have already seen the footage, they are not talking. They were told not to talk. But the little bits that have leaked, they are devastating. Situation number 2. Sean Diddy Combs has an appeal hearing in exactly 3 days, April 9th. And here's what nobody is saying out loud. The outcome of that appeal doesn't just affect Diddy. It sets a legal precedent that could directly impact how T.I.'s own legal situation plays out. Think about that for a second. And situation number 3. Jay-Z just broke his silence. His first real interview in years. 8,000 words to GQ magazine. And buried inside that conversation are things he said, not just about Kendrick and Drake, but about the entire infrastructure of this industry that tells you everything about where we are right now. These 3 stories are not separate. They are chapters of the same book. And today, we are going to read every single page. Stay with me, because this video is going to take you somewhere most people are too afraid to go. Let's start with the money, because the money always tells the story first. On April 1st, 2026, yes, April Fool's Day, 50 Cent dropped a bomb so loud the whole industry thought it was a joke. He announced that Hulu had signed a $75 million deal for his upcoming documentary. And the subject? T.I. and Tamika Tiny Harris. Now before you brush that off, let me give you some context. 50 Cent's last documentary, the one about Diddy, called The Reckoning on Netflix, made him over $50 million. $50 million. And that documentary destroyed Diddy's entire public image before the man even stepped into a courtroom. Think about what $50 million worth of documentary power did to Sean Combs. Now Hulu just paid $75 million, $25 million more, for the T.I. version. That is not a coincidence. That is a statement. The bidding war for this documentary was reportedly between Netflix, Starz, Hulu, and Apple Music. 4 of the biggest streaming platforms on the planet were fighting each other over the rights to this content. And Hulu won. You do not spend $75 million on something unless you believe it is going to be one of the most watched pieces of content in the history of your platform. So the question is, what is inside that documentary that made 4 streaming giants collectively go to war over it? Because here's what we know publicly. And I want you to understand, what we know publicly is already catastrophic. The stuff we don't know yet? That's what scared those networks into spending $75 million. Let me take you back to January 25th, 2021. That's when Sabrina Peterson, an entrepreneur, a businesswoman, and a former close friend of the Harrises, went on Instagram and made an accusation that cracked the whole thing open. She accused T.I. of holding her at gunpoint. At gunpoint. In front of witnesses. That single post opened a flood that nobody was ready for. Within 3 days, Peterson had shared screenshots on her Instagram stories from more than 24 alleged victims. 24+ people, reaching out to her privately, saying the same things had happened to them. And these weren't vague complaints. These were specific, detailed, consistent accounts. Now I need you to understand what consistent accounts means in a legal context. It means corroboration. It means that when multiple unconnected people describe the same methods, the same locations, the same substances, the same behaviors, prosecutors start paying very serious attention. And what were those accounts saying? They were saying that T.I. and Tiny would invite women, some of them very young, to what appeared to be social gatherings, parties, studio sessions, industry events. And once inside, those women were pressured to remove their clothing, pressured to take drugs, pressured to engage in sexual acts with both T.I. and Tiny, and in some cases, with other people entirely. Some of those women said they lost consciousness. They woke up hours later, disoriented, in pain, with no memory of what had happened to them. But it gets worse. It always gets worse. One victim, and this is documented in court filings, was a 17-year-old intern working at T.I. and Tiny's studio in 2006. 17 years old, a teenager working in a professional environment. According to the legal documents, Tiny allegedly offered this child alcohol and pills. The girl passed out, and when she woke up the next morning, she was bleeding. An associate of Tiny's allegedly gave her a morning after pill and sent her on her way. A morning after pill to a 17-year-old, and then silence for 15 years. Now here's what happened with the investigations. By February 2021, Attorney Tyrone Blackburn had sent letters to law enforcement in Georgia and California requesting criminal investigations on behalf of 11 new accusers. 11. And within weeks of sending those letters, he said 6 more had come forward. The LAPD opened an investigation. Las Vegas Metro Police opened an investigation. And then, one by one, those investigations were closed. Not because the accusations were found to be false, but because of the statute of limitations. The incidents were too old under existing law for criminal prosecution. Do you understand what that means? It means the law said the clock had run out. Not that it didn't happen. T.I. called it propaganda. He said people were lying on him. But here's the thing about propaganda. Propaganda doesn't produce 17 different, unconnected people describing the same specific acts in the same specific locations across multiple states. Because that's what we're talking about. Multiple states. Nevada, California, Florida. These aren't local incidents. This is what federal prosecutors call a pattern of conduct across state lines. And when you cross state lines with a criminal pattern, that's federal jurisdiction. That's where statutes of limitations get complicated. That's where the government has different tools. And in January 2024, someone used one of those tools. An anonymous accuser filed a civil lawsuit under California's Sexual Abuse and Cover-Up Accountability Act, a look-back law that temporarily lifted the statute of limitations specifically to allow older sexual assault claims to be heard in court. That case is still active, and now 50 Cent has $75 million and a Hulu deal to tell that entire story to the world. Now let me tell you something that doesn't get talked about enough in all of this, because when a family is holding secrets, those secrets have a weight. And that weight gets transferred. It doesn't disappear. It moves, and it lands on the people closest to the source. Meet King Harris, T.I.'s son, 21 years old and currently facing a potential 5-year prison sentence. Now, let's talk about the man in the prison cell. Because Sean Diddy Combs is currently sitting at FCI Fort Dix in New Jersey. And in 3 days, April 9th, 2026, 3 federal judges are going to sit down in a New York courtroom and hear arguments about whether he stays there. I want to be very precise about what this appeal is and what it isn't, because there's a lot of misinformation flying around on social media right now. This is not a new trial. This is not Diddy getting out tomorrow. This is an appeal hearing, oral arguments before a 3-judge panel at the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, and a written ruling, when it comes, will likely take weeks or even months after the hearing. But what makes this hearing extraordinary, genuinely extraordinary, is what it represents legally. Because the arguments being made here are not just about Diddy. They are about fundamental principles of American criminal law that courts across the country are watching very closely. Let me walk you through what happened. In July 2025, Sean Combs was convicted on 2 counts of what's called the Mann Act, transportation for the purpose of prostitution. He was acquitted, found not guilty on the more serious charges, racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. In October 2025, Judge Arun Subramanian sentenced him to 50 months in federal prison, a $500,000 fine, and 5 years of supervised release after his release. 50 months is 4 years and 2 months. His current projected release date is April 15th, 2028. But here's where it gets complicated. And this is the part that everyone needs to understand because it directly connects to T.I. Diddy's lead appellate attorney is Alexandra Shapiro, a highly respected federal appeals lawyer. And Shapiro's team is making 4 specific arguments to the Second Circuit. Argument 1, the sentence is excessive, disproportionately, scandalously excessive. Shapiro's brief argues that Diddy's 50-month sentence is approximately 4 times higher than what judges typically hand down for Mann Act violations of this nature. For times, they are arguing that Judge Subramanian essentially used the charges Diddy was acquitted of, charges the jury rejected, as an excuse to impose a sentence more consistent with a sex trafficking conviction. Even though the jury said he wasn't guilty of sex trafficking. Argument 2. This is the big one. This is the argument that law professors are watching. Acquitted conduct sentencing. It sounds technical. Let me make it simple for you. When a jury finds you not guilty of something, that's supposed to mean something. That's supposed to be final. The jury heard the evidence, deliberated, and said, "We do not believe the government proved this charge. Not guilty." But here's the dirty little secret of federal sentencing. Judges can still consider the conduct behind those not guilty charges when they're deciding how long to punish you for the charges you were convicted on. They can effectively retry you at sentencing, using a lower standard of proof, and give you a harsher sentence based on things the jury said you didn't do. That practice is called acquitted conduct sentencing, and Diddy's team is arguing it is unconstitutional. The Supreme Court has declined to rule on this issue definitively for decades. The Second Circuit's response to this argument in Diddy's case could create precedent that reshapes federal sentencing nationwide. Now, here's the connection nobody is saying out loud. If Diddy's team wins on this argument, if the Second Circuit says acquitted conduct sentencing violates due process, what happens to every federal case currently being built against other celebrities, other figures, other powerful men who are being investigated for conduct that some juries might partially acquit them on, including the kind of cross-state line conduct that appears in certain documentary footage being edited right now at Hulu? Argument 3. And I want to be honest with you, this argument is a long shot, but it's fascinating. Diddy's lawyers are arguing that his so-called freak-off parties are protected expression under the First Amendment. They are comparing them to amateur adult film productions. They are saying that interstate transportation for the purpose of organizing these events falls outside the Mann Act scope. I'll be real with you, that argument is going to be very difficult to win, because the prosecution's counterargument is devastating. Diddy did not obtain consent to film. The participants were not informed they were being recorded. He used violence, threats, drugs, and manipulation to orchestrate what happened. There was no creative expression happening there. There was coercion happening there. Argument 4. The jury verdict was misinterpreted. Shapiro's team argues the trial court read the conviction too broadly when calculating the sentencing range, that the judge essentially sentenced Diddy for more than what the jury actually found him guilty of. Now, 3 possible outcomes on April 9th. Outcome 1, and this is considered the most likely. The 3-judge panel upholds everything. The conviction stands. The sentence stands. Diddy stays at Fort Dix toward his April 2028 release. This is what the prosecution is fighting for, and it's what most legal experts expect. Outcome 2, moderate probability. The panel sends it back for resentencing. They find that Judge Subramanian improperly used the acquitted conduct at sentencing and order him to redo the math without it. This could result in a dramatically shorter sentence, potentially short enough that Diddy could be out within months. Outcome 3, the least likely, but the one that would shake the entire industry to its foundation. Full reversal. The panel finds a fundamental legal error, either acquits Diddy entirely or orders a brand new trial. This is what his team is ultimately asking for. Almost nobody thinks it happens. But here's the thing about almost nobody thinks it happens. On September 16th, 2021, almost nobody thought T.I. and Tiny would escape criminal prosecution entirely. And they did because of statute of limitations. On July 2025, many people thought Diddy would be convicted on all counts, including the racketeering. And the jury acquitted him of those charges. In this industry, in these courtrooms, the thing almost nobody thinks happens has a disturbing habit of happening. Oral arguments are 15 to 30 minutes per side. That's it. That's all the time these lawyers get to potentially change the trajectory of one of the most famous cases in hip-hop history. 15 minutes for a 50-month sentence. And the judges could take weeks, even months, to issue their written decision after that. But here's what I want you to think about while you're waiting for that ruling. 50 Cent made a documentary about Diddy. Netflix paid $50 million for it. That documentary came out before the trial. It shaped public narrative. Some legal observers believe it may have influenced jury selection. And Diddy got convicted. Now 50 Cent is making a documentary about T.I. Hulu paid $75 million for it. And the documentary will drop, timed perfectly to shape the narrative around whatever legal proceedings T.I. is facing. Do you see the pattern? Do you see what 50 Cent is doing? He is not just making documentaries. He is building a production pipeline for dismantling men he believes deserve to be dismantled. And he is charging streaming platforms tens of millions of dollars for the privilege of being the platform he chooses. Now let's talk about the man who said something that the whole internet focused on for the wrong reasons. Jay-Z gave an interview to GQ magazine. His first real, long-form, sit-down interview in years. Nearly 8,000 words. 4 hours of conversation compressed into a piece that people are still unpacking. And everyone focused on what he said about Kendrick and Drake. Because that's the easy headline. That's the clickable moment. Jay-Z says battling shouldn't be part of hip-hop anymore. Jay-Z thinks the beef went too far. And yes, he said those things. He said the Kendrick-Drake situation went too far. He said bringing people's kids into it was a line that should not have been crossed. He said, and I want you to hear this exactly as he said it, I don't know if battling needs to be part of the culture anymore. That's a statement from Jay-Z about the culture he helped build. And he praised Kendrick. He said Kendrick's decision to play new, unfamiliar music to 120 million Super Bowl viewers was brave. He said it raised his already high respect for Lamar even higher. He said the artistic choice to stand in front of that audience and complete his vision, that took something. But here's what I want to talk about. Because the Kendrick and Drake stuff, that's interesting. That's cultural commentary. But that's not the part of that interview that should be making your hair stand up. The part that should be making your hair stand up is what Jay-Z said about his own lawsuit. The sexual assault civil lawsuit that was filed against him last year. The lawsuit that was subsequently dismissed. He said, and these are close to his actual words, I was heartbroken. Really hard. I was angry. I haven't been that angry in a long time. Uncontrollable anger. Jay-Z, one of the most controlled, calculated, strategically brilliant men in the music industry, who has built an empire specifically on the ability to keep his composure under pressure, who wrote I Will Not Lose as a life philosophy. That man said he experienced uncontrollable anger. And then he said this, I can't take a settlement. It ain't in my DNA. Now I want you to sit with that for a moment. Because that statement is interesting in the context of everything else happening around us right now. Because in the same cultural moment where Diddy is in prison, partially, because of what happened after Cassie Ventura filed a lawsuit that he settled within 24 hours, Jay-Z is loudly, publicly, proudly declaring that he does not settle. Think about what that signals to every other powerful person in the industry who might be facing civil litigation right now. Think about what that signals to T.I.'s legal team. Think about what that signals to every attorney advising every celebrity who has ever been accused of anything. Jay-Z is saying, the settlement is not the safe play anymore. Because settling implies guilt in the court of public opinion. And in the court of public opinion right now, perception is prison. He also said something else in that interview that hit different when I heard it. He said, there is clearly an agenda to silence voices in our community. A heavy right-wing agenda. And the culture is happily playing along in the name of this insane thirst of stan culture. Now, I'm not going to tell you whether Jay-Z is right or wrong about that political analysis. What I'm going to tell you is that this is a man who is watching everything happening around him. Diddy convicted, T.I. being exposed, his own sexual assault lawsuit, and he is trying to make sense of it all in real time. And the sense he is making of it is that something bigger is happening. Some larger force is at work. And the culture is participating in its own undoing. Is he right? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But what I do know is that when one of the most powerful men in the history of this industry feels scared enough to break 5 years of silence and give an 8,000-word interview, something has changed. Something fundamental has shifted. And the other thing I know is this. Jay-Z was close with Diddy. Publicly, professionally, historically close. He was in the orbit of the same industry parties, the same events, the same cycles. The same is arguably true of T.I. These men existed in overlapping worlds for decades. And now Jay-Z is sitting in a chair giving interviews about uncontrollable anger and refusing to settle lawsuits and questioning whether the culture he helped build is being used against itself. That is not a man who is comfortable. That is a man who is bracing. Okay, so now we have all the pieces on the table. Let me connect them for you. Because individually, each of these stories is significant. But together they are telling you something about where this industry is going. 50 Cent made a documentary about Diddy. Diddy went to prison. 50 Cent is making a documentary about T.I. T.I. is currently in a public beef with 50 Cent. His son is facing prison time, and a civil lawsuit filed under California look-back law is still active. Do you see the pipeline? Now here's what I want you to understand about how 50 Cent operates. This man does not operate on emotion. He operates on information. He has access, through his production team, through his legal team, through his network, to information that the general public does not have. And he has spent years, plural, cultivating relationships with people who were inside these situations and wanted to talk. The Diddy documentary did not happen overnight. The research for The Reckoning was years in the making. And by all indications, the T.I. documentary has been in development for at least as long. Which means that when 50 Cent secured that $75 million Hulu deal, it wasn't because he walked in with a pitch deck and a concept. It was because he walked in with footage, with documents, with interviews, with evidence that streaming executives watched in a private screening room and then immediately called their lawyers to figure out what they were legally allowed to broadcast. $75 million is not paid for a concept. $75 million is paid for something that has already been built, something that has already been vetted, something that Hulu's legal team has already reviewed and said, this is defensible. And now the Diddy appeal happens on April 9th. Here's the thing about the timing that nobody is talking about. The appeal hearing is public. It's at 40 Foley Square in New York City. Anyone can attend. Every word spoken in that courtroom becomes part of the public legal record. And the core argument, acquitted conduct sentencing. If that argument gets even partial traction with the 3-judge panel, if those judges start asking hard questions about whether federal judges can punish defendants for things juries said they didn't do, the legal conversation will echo across every active case involving similar conduct. Every civil lawsuit. Every criminal investigation. Every case where prosecutors are trying to build charges around a pattern of behavior that crosses state lines. Because here's what sex trafficking charges are. They are Mann Act charges on steroids. They are the federal version of what Mann Act violations look like when the government has more evidence, more witnesses, and a clearer pattern of interstate movement. If Diddy's team convinces the Second Circuit that acquitted conduct sentencing is unconstitutional, the next attorney representing the next powerful man facing these kinds of allegations has an argument, a real, precedent-based, appellate court-backed argument, about what the government can and cannot use against their client at sentencing. I'm not saying that's good or that's bad. I'm saying that's the reality of what is at stake on April 9th. And it is directly connected to the T.I. situation in ways that no one is talking about. Now let me give you the 30,000-foot view of what is happening in this industry right now. The Cassie Ventura lawsuit against Diddy was filed in September 2023. He settled within 24 hours. That settlement triggered a cascade, a landslide, of additional accusers, additional lawsuits, additional attention. The hotel hallway video came out in March 2024. The federal arrest was September 2024. The conviction was July 2025. Start to finish, less than 2 years from lawsuit to prison sentence. 2 years. For a man who had been the most powerful figure in hip-hop for 3 decades. 2 years from the first crack to the prison cell. The first public accusation against T.I. and Tiny was January 2021. That's 5 years ago. The civil lawsuit under California's look-back law was filed in January 2024. That's 2 years ago. The Hulu documentary deal was signed in April 2026. That's now. The clock is running. And it's running faster than T.I. seems to understand. Because here's the thing about these situations. They accelerate. Slowly, then all at once. And the moment that documentary drops on Hulu, the moment regular people sitting on their couches watch what those $75 million purchased, the conversation changes in a way that cannot be undone. Diddy's situation changed permanently the moment the CNN hotel hallway video was published. Not the lawsuit, not the arrest, the video, the visual evidence that made abstract allegations into something concrete that people could see with their own eyes. What is in the T.I. documentary that serves that function? What is the visual, the document, the interview, the piece of evidence that makes abstract allegations concrete for people watching at home? I don't know the answer to that question. Neither do you. But Hulu paid $75 million because they believe they have it. So let me tell you exactly what you need to be watching over the next 30 days. Because things are about to move fast. Watch number 1, April 9th, 2026. The Diddy appeal oral arguments. Watch for the questions the 3 judges ask. Not just the arguments. The questions. When appellate judges are seriously considering an argument, they ask hard, probing questions about its implications. If you see a judge drilling down on the acquitted conduct sentencing argument, asking the prosecutor to explain exactly why the Constitution permits it, pay attention to that. It means the argument has traction. Watch number 2, T.I.'s response. Over the next 30 days, watch how T.I. behaves publicly. Does he go quiet? Does he get louder? Does he do interviews? Because the worst thing he could do right now is keep engaging 50 Cent publicly while a Hulu documentary about him is in post-production. Every word he says right now is potentially context for that documentary's narrative. Watch number 3, King Harris's court date. His sentencing situation is still active. And whatever happens in that courtroom, whatever deal his legal team reaches, whatever a judge decides, it is going to be framed in the public consciousness against the backdrop of everything his father is facing. Watch number 4, Jay-Z. Because that GQ interview was the first crack in 5 years of silence. And when powerful, calculating people start talking, they usually don't stop. Pay attention to what Jay-Z says next. Pay attention to who he says it to. Because there is more in those 4 hours of interviews that didn't make it into the published piece. And at some point, that unpublished material exists somewhere. And watch number 5, the documentary release date announcement. When Hulu sets a date for the T.I. documentary to drop, the entire calculus changes. Because at that point, the pressure on everyone connected to this story, T.I., Tiny, the legal team, the accusers, the witnesses, becomes immense. Things move, settlements happen, or they don't happen. Criminal referrals get made. Accusers come forward publicly. The whole machine starts turning. That announcement is coming. The only question is when. Look, I'm going to be real with you before I close this out. We are living through something that has never happened before in hip-hop history. We are watching, in real time, the systematic dismantling of an era's power structure. One documentary at a time. One appeal at a time. One interview at a time. Diddy is in prison. T.I. is next in line for the documentary treatment. Jay-Z is giving interviews about uncontrollable anger. King Harris is facing 5 years. And 50 Cent is somehow the most powerful man in the room, and he doesn't even have to rap anymore to prove it. The industry built these men up. For decades, protected them, celebrated them, gave them platforms and money and power and influence. And now that same industry's own infrastructure, the streaming platforms, the documentary format, the legal look-back laws, the federal courts, is being used as the instrument of their accountability. Whether that's justice or something else entirely depends on what's in that documentary. We will find out, probably sooner than any of us are ready for. If you are watching this and you are not subscribed, subscribe right now, because when that Hulu release date drops, I need you already here. I need you already locked in. Because that video is going to need to go up fast, and I need everyone in this community to see it the moment it lands. Hit the like button, drop a comment, tell me, do you think T.I. and Tiny are going to fight this documentary? Or do you think they're going to try to reach some kind of agreement with Hulu before it drops? Let me know below. And share this video. Share it right now. Because the stuff we talked about today, the Diddy appeal, the Hulu deal, the Jay-Z interview, most people don't even know these 3 things are happening at the same time. Most people don't see the connection. You do now. I'm Tribune Realm. Stay locked in.